The stars were burning. Across the galaxy, entire civilizations screamed into the void for help, their desperate signals bouncing from one broken world to another. Ancient empires, once proud and eternal, now lay in ruins. Fleets that had ruled space for 1,000 years were shattered in a single night. The enemy had come without warning, a swarm older than memory, a force that consumed everything in its path. It did not stop. It did not rest. It only devoured. Planets vanished. Moons were turned to ash. Entire star systems went dark, and as the swarm grew stronger with every victory, the galaxy grew weaker. Great leaders of alien races begged for warriors, for champions, for heroes to rise and stand against the tide. But none came. None answered. Fear ruled the stars. The Council of Civilizations, the great circle that once claimed to protect all, remained silent. Their fleets were gone. Their courage was gone. Their hope was gone. Yet the signal still traveled. It was a desperate message, bouncing across star lanes, searching for ears that would listen. One line repeated over and over in every language, of the stars. The universe cries for heroes who will answer. The signal reached Earth. At first it was just static in the Terran deep space listening posts. The technicians thought it was noise, just another broken broadcast from a dying world. But the message repeated again, louder, clearer. The words were filled with sorrow, with pleading, with despair. Humanity listened. For days the message was debated. Scientists, soldiers, and leaders gathered around glowing screens, watching, the faces of alien leaders begging for salvation. They described the swarm in broken words, ships like shadows, endless in number, moving like a tide of darkness. No empire could stop them, no fleet could stand. Even the ancients had fallen. The question spread across Earth. Should we answer? Many said no. They said humanity was too small, too fragile, too young compared to the vast civilizations of the galaxy. If the great powers had fallen, what chance did Earth have? Why should humanity risk everything for strangers in the stars? Let the galaxy burn, they whispered. We must protect ourselves. But others argued differently. They reminded the world that humanity had always stood in the face of impossible odds. On Earth, in history, they had survived wars, disasters, plagues, and struggles that should have destroyed them. Every time the world pushed them down, they stood back up. Every time someone said, impossible, humanity made it possible. And so, the debate grew. The galaxy begged for heroes. Could Earth remain silent? Could humanity ignore the cries of billions of innocent lives? In the end, the answer came not from the politicians, not from the wealthy, not from the fearful. It came from the people. Soldiers stepped forward, their eyes burning with fire. Engineers opened old hangars, brushing dust off forgotten war machines. Scientists unlocked secret projects once hidden in shadows. Ordinary men and women looked up at the night sky and whispered the same word. Yes, humanity would answer. The Council of Alien Races did not believe it. When the Terran message reached them, they laughed bitterly. Humans? The fragile species from a small blue world? They thought Earth would be crushed in moments. They thought humanity's promise was nothing but pride. Yet humanity did not boast. They did not promise victory. They gave only one promise. We will stand. And so the preparations began. Across Earth, old war factories roared back to life. The sound of machines echoed across mountains and cities. Ships were built, not for trade, not for exploration, but for war. Steel wings stretched toward the sky. Engines thundered as flames burned bright in the night. Entire generations who had never seen war now trained for it, learning to fight not for conquest but for survival. From orbit, great fleets began to form. Carriers larger than cities, destroyers bristling with weapons, fighters sharp as knives. Humanity did not hide these fleets. They let the galaxy see. They wanted every alien world to know Someone had finally answered the desperate call. Still, fear lingered. No one truly knew if humanity could succeed. The swarm was endless. The swarm was unstoppable. The swarm had consumed stars larger than anything humans had ever known. Against such a force, humanity looked like ants before a storm, but there was something different in humanity's eyes, something the galaxy had not seen in millennia. It was not arrogance, it was not false hope, it was defiance. A fire burned in every human soul, a fire that said, "Even if we fall, we will not kneel." The universe had begged for heroes, and though no other species had dared to rise, humanity stepped forward, alone, defiant, ready to face the darkness. And in that moment, the galaxy trembled. For the first time, the swarm would not face silence. For the first time, the swarm would meet resistance. For the first time, someone had dared to whisper back to the void. The message was simple, but it echoed like thunder across the stars. Hear your cries. We will not turn away. Humanity will fight. The decision had been made. Humanity would answer the desperate call, but words alone were not enough. Action was needed, and action came fast. Across Earth, a storm began to rise, not of thunder and rain, but of fire and steel. Old shipyards that had slept for decades awakened again. Massive cranes groaned as they lifted steel frames of warships into orbit. Factories that once built cars and machines now forged weapons, armor, and engines of war. Skies filled with the roar of engines as fighters trained day and night, cutting sharp trails of light across the heavens. On every continent, men and women stood in long lines, volunteers ready to defend not just Earth, but the galaxy itself. Humanity had faced many wars on its homeworld, but this was different. This was not about borders or politics. This was about survival, not only for humans but for billions of alien lives who had already lost hope. Humanity was preparing to become the shield of the galaxy, even if the galaxy had never asked them to. In the command halls of the United Terran Fleet, plans were drawn. Admirals studied maps of star systems, their eyes dark with focus. Generals whispered strategies, their voices sharp with determination. They all knew one truth. Humanity was outnumbered. The swarm was endless, its fleets uncountable, its hunger unstoppable. Against such an enemy, humanity was only a spark in the dark. But sometimes a spark was enough to start a fire. As days turned to weeks, whispers spread through the alien worlds. Refugees fleeing from the swarm carried news of Earth's defiance. They told stories of humans building ships faster than any empire had imagined, of humans training with fire in their hearts, of humans answering when no one else dared to. At first, the galaxy laughed. Then the laughter turned to disbelief. And finally, disbelief turned to fear. Fear not of humanity's weakness, but of their courage. For the swarm had never faced such courage before. In the shadows of space, alien observers watched. Hidden fleets from fallen empires kept their distance, sending silent probes to record humanity's rise. They wanted to see if Earth would truly stand, or if it would collapse like all the others. Every alien eye expected failure. Every alien ear waited for the sound of defeat. But what they saw was different. Humanity did not break. Humanity grew stronger. The first Terran battle fleet was assembled in orbit above Earth. Carriers the size of cities floated like mountains in the sky, their hulls glowing with new technology forged in secret laboratories. Destroyers lined up in formation, bristling with cannons and missile pods. Fighters moved in swarms, sharp and fast, like blades of light cutting through the darkness. And at the heart of the fleet, the Terran flagship, a massive dreadnought, named Resolute, stood ready, its engines burning brighter than the stars. From the surface of Earth, billions watched the launch. Children, elders, workers, and leaders all stood together as the first wave of humanity's fleet rose into the void. The sky thundered, the oceans shook, and fire trailed across the heavens. It was not just a launch. It was a promise. Humanity would not run. Humanity would not hide. Humanity would fight. But the storm was only beginning. Beyond the edges of known space, the swarm stirred. It had sensed resistance. It had tasted fear from countless species, but now it smelled something, new defiance. The swarm began to shift, to gather, to prepare for a strike unlike any before. For the first time in centuries, the predator hesitated, curious about the small blue world that dared to oppose it. On Earth, the people did not know fear had touched the enemy. They only knew one thing: the battle was coming. Soldiers sharpened their blades. Pilots strapped into their cockpits, their hands steady but their hearts racing. Engineers polished steel and checked every bolt, knowing that even a single mistake could cost lives. Humanity was uniting in a way it never had before. No borders, no divisions, no hatred among themselves. The enemy was out there, and it was vast. Against such a threat, Earth stood as one, and so the storm grew. Across alien space, the cry spread again. The universe needs heroes. Who will answer? And still, the answer was the same. Humanity. Always humanity. The Council of Alien. Races met in secret chambers, whispering in fear. They could not understand it. Why would a young species, untested and fragile, step forward when all others had stepped back? Why would they risk extinction for worlds not their own? Some called it madness. Others called it arrogance. But one alien leader spoke the truth that none wished to admit. It is not madness, it is not arrogance, it is simply who they are. As the fleets left orbit, as humanity's storm spread across the stars, the galaxy held its breath. Something new had begun, something unstoppable. The enemy was waiting. The darkness was moving, and soon the storm and the swarm would meet. The galaxy had begged for heroes. Humanity had answered, and now the gathering storm was ready to break. The storm had gathered. Humanity's fleets stood ready. Engines burned with the fire of determination, and the stars themselves seemed to wait for what was coming. Across the galaxy, countless eyes were fixed on one place, the border of Terran space. That was where the swarm would strike first. That was where humanity's promise would be tested. The swarm arrived without warning. One moment, the skies beyond the edge of Terran territory were empty. The next, they were filled with shadows. Countless dark shapes emerged from the void, living ships that moved like predators, wings of bone and metal glistening with alien hunger. They did not come quietly. They came with a roar that echoed across sensors and comms, a storm of signals that sent fear through any who heard it. Entire fleets of nightmares, endless and unstoppable, rushing forward like a tide of death. Humanity did not retreat. Humanity advanced. The first clash came in the Kepler system, where human colonies circled a bright sun. The swarm poured into the system like black water, rushing toward the fragile worlds below. But the Terran fleet was waiting. Carriers opened their hangar bays. Thousands of fighters streaked into the void, their engines blazing like lightning. Destroyers moved into formation, shields flaring as they braced for the storm. And at the center of it all, the Resolute lit its cannons, ready to make history. The battle began in silence, broken only by the flash of light. Missiles roared across the darkness. Beams of energy cut through the void like blazing swords. Fighters weaved between the swarm ships, firing in bursts, carving holes through their twisted hulls. The swarm responded with fury. Their ships screeched across the comms, an alien sound that rattled bones and shook hearts. They hurled themselves at the human lines, tearing into shields, ramming into steel, burning with unholy power. And still, humanity did not break. On board the Resolute, Captain Arden stood tall, his voice calm even as alarms screamed around him. "Hold the line," he said. "No retreat, no surrender. Today humanity shows the galaxy what it means to fight." His crew obeyed without hesitation. They had trained for this moment, dreamed of this moment, feared this moment. Now it was here. Now it was real. The first wave of swarm ships slammed against the Terran fleet. Shields flared, hulls cracked. Fire erupted across the stars. A dozen human ships were torn apart in seconds, but not before they took twice as many swarm vessels with them. The humans fought like no other race had fought before. Where others fled, they advanced. Where others surrendered, they resisted. Where others cried for mercy, humanity answered with fire. Alien eyes across the galaxy watched in awe. Probes hidden in the darkness recorded every moment. Fleets in exile whispered the same words over and over. They are actually holding. But holding was not enough. The swarm was endless. Every human victory was met with 10 more enemy ships rushing forward. The Kepler system shook with the clash of titans, its planets glowing under the fury of war. And then something happened the swarm had never seen before. Humanity adapted. In the middle of battle, Terran ships shifted their formations. Fighters began to fly in strange, unpredictable patterns. Destroyers coordinated fire with impossible precision. The swarm, used to crushing enemies with sheer numbers, found itself outmaneuvered. Human ingenuity, human creativity, human defiance. These were weapons the swarm did not understand. A swarm carrier, larger than a mountain, pushed forward to crush the human lines. But before it could strike, a wave of Terran bombers dove through its defenses, weaving between blasts of plasma and clawed alien fighters. They planted charges deep within its armored shell. The explosion lit up the system, brighter than the sun as the swarm carrier broke apart, its fragments burning like meteors across the void. The galaxy held its breath. Humanity had done what no empire had managed in centuries. They had stopped the swarm. Not destroyed it, not defeated it, but stopped it. For the first time in living memory, the swarm was forced to pause. The cost was heavy. Hundreds of human pilots were lost. Dozens of ships were gone, their wrecks drifting through the void. But the line had held. The colonies of Kepler were safe. Humanity had proven its promise was not just words. They had faced the storm. And they had survived. Across the stars, alien voices whispered in disbelief. Could it be true? Could humans truly be the heroes the galaxy had begged for? Could they succeed where everyone else had failed? The answer was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. The swarm had been stopped, and it had been stopped by humanity alone. On the bridge of the Resolute, as the fires of battle faded and the swarm retreated for the first time, Captain Arden gave the order that would echo across the galaxy. Send the message. Tell them we held the line. Tell them humanity has answered. The signal spread like wildfire. To every world, to every corner of the galaxy, the words were heard. The Terrans stood, the Terrans fought. The Terrans did not fall. The first clash of fire was over. Humanity had survived. But the war had only just begun. The Battle of Kepler changed everything. For the first time in centuries, the swarm had been forced to pause. Entire galaxies whispered the same words. The humans stood. But one victory was not enough. The swarm was endless, and more waves were already moving toward human space. The war had only begun. On Earth, the mood was different. The victory had lit a fire across the planet. Men and women who once doubted now believed. Factories roared louder. Shipyards worked without rest. Young recruits flooded training camps, and scientists unlocked new weapons with desperate speed. Humanity had bled, but humanity had not broken. In secret chambers across the galaxy, alien leaders gathered again. They had mocked the Terrans before. Now they spoke their names in hushed voices, almost with fear. If humanity could hold the swarm, then perhaps there was still hope. But not everyone trusted them. Some believed Earth was reckless, that their courage would doom the galaxy instead of saving it. Others feared what would happen if humanity actually won. A young, fierce species holding the power to shape the stars? That thought was as terrifying as the swarm itself. But while the council whispered, humanity acted. The second wave of battles came quickly. The swarm pushed deeper, attacking colonies along the Orion Arm. Entire planets were stripped bare in hours. Their cities turned to ash. Terran fleets raced to meet them, and each battle was harder than the last. Ships burned, soldiers fell, and entire squadrons vanished into the void. Humanity was fighting with everything they had, but the enemy never seemed to end. Then came the battle that changed the war forever, the siege of Vega Prime. Vega was not just another colony. It was the heart of Terran industry, a system filled with shipyards, fuel stations, and research labs. If Vega fell, humanity's war effort would collapse. The Swarm knew this. They came with their full fury, thousands of ships, monstrous carriers, living weapons that blotted out the stars. The Terran fleet was smaller, weaker, battered from Kepler and Orion, yet they stood their ground. The fighting was worse than anything before. For 3 days and 3 nights, the system burned. Human carriers unleashed waves of fighters, but the Swarm devoured them. Destroyers fought until their hulls cracked, until their reactors went silent. Every hour, humanity lost ground. Every hour, the Swarm crept closer to Vega's cities. On the 4th day, it seemed certain the humans would break. The Swarm had forced open the defensive lines pouring toward the planet. Human fleets were scattered, their numbers cut in half. Even the Resolute had been crippled, its engines sputtering, its cannons silent. The galaxy watched in silence. Many whispered that it was over, that Earth had given all it could, and now it too would fall. But then, something happened. In the darkness of space, a battered squadron of human ships did the unthinkable. Instead of retreating, instead of regrouping, they charged directly into the heart of the Swarm fleet. A suicide run. Alien observers could not believe it. No other species would dare such madness, but the humans did not hesitate. They hurled themselves forward, slamming into the Swarm's command ships, tearing through their monstrous hulls with every missile, every cannon, every ounce of fire left in them. The Swarm reeled. For the first time, its perfect coordination broke. Its ships faltered, its advance slowed, and in that moment of weakness, humanity struck back. The Resolute, burning and broken, lit its last engines and fired its massive cannons one final time. The blast ripped through the Swarm's largest carrier, shattering it into fragments that burned across Vega's sky. Terran reinforcements arrived through hyperspace seconds later, pouring into the fight with fresh fire. Humanity had turned the tide. The Swarm retreated. Vega was saved. The price was terrible. Thousands of human ships were gone. Tens of thousands of lives had been lost. But Vega still stood, and with it, the war changed. The galaxy could no longer deny the truth. Humanity was not only surviving, they were winning. For the first time, alien fleets began to move. Refugee ships that had hidden for centuries now drifted toward Terran space, seeking protection. Smaller species offered supplies, engineers, even volunteers. And slowly, reluctantly, even some of the great empires sent their fleets to join the humans. The phrase spread like fire across the stars. When the galaxy begged for heroes, only humans stepped forward. It was no longer just a phrase. It was a truth written in blood, in fire, in sacrifice. Humanity had become the turning point, and deep in the void, where the Swarm gathered its strength for another strike, something new began to stir. For the first time in its endless existence, the Swarm had known fear. The Swarm had been pushed back at Vega. For the first time in living memory, the nightmare that had consumed civilizations was forced to retreat. The galaxy trembled, not from fear, but from something it had long forgotten: hope. And that hope had a name: humanity. Across the stars, whispers spread like wildfire. Entire worlds spoke of the Terrans who had stood alone when no one else dared. Refugees repeated the stories with trembling voices. Children in shattered colonies whispered them before sleep, and alien leaders repeated them in council chambers. Everywhere the words were the same. The humans answered. But victory did not bring peace. The Swarm was still out there, vast and unbroken, gathering its strength for another strike. Humanity knew the war was far from over. The skies above Earth burned with the fire of endless construction. More ships, more weapons, more soldiers. Every factory, every city, every heart was dedicated to the fight. Humanity was no longer preparing, just for survival. They were preparing for something greater, to lead the galaxy into war. Allies began to arrive. At first, they came in secret. Small fleets, scattered and broken, offering their service in exchange for protection. But as humanity proved again and again that it would not fall, more came. Soon, fleets from forgotten empires aligned themselves with Terran banners. Species that once hated each other now fought side by side under the command of human admirals. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was united, but not under the Council, not under the old powers, but under humanity. The swarm struck again. Entire sectors became battlefields, but this time, humanity was not alone. Human fleets led the charge, their banners burning across the stars, and alien ships followed in their wake. Together they pushed the enemy back, further than any believed possible. Planets once abandoned were reclaimed. Colonies once silent came alive again. For every life lost, 10 more rose to fight. Yet even with allies, the cost was brutal. Human ships burned in every battle. Soldiers fell in countless numbers. Families wept across Earth and its colonies, but still the line held. Still humanity advanced. What made them different was not their strength or their numbers. It was their refusal to surrender. In the void beyond known space, the swarm prepared one last strike, the greatest the galaxy had ever seen. A tide of ships so vast that it blotted out the stars, moving toward the heart of Terran space. If it succeeded, everything would end. Humanity did not wait for the enemy to come. They went to meet it. The largest fleet in history gathered under the banner of Earth. Thousands of human ships, joined by alien allies, formed a wall of fire across the heavens. The Resolute, scarred and rebuilt, stood once more at the center of the fleet. Its hull carried the marks of every battle, its cannons rebuilt from the wreckage of fallen ships, its engines burning like the heart of a star. The battle was beyond imagination. Worlds shook as weapons roared, stars dimmed under the fury of fire. The swarm hurled itself forward in endless waves, but the united fleet answered with equal fury. Hours turned to days, days to nights, and still the war burned. Entire sectors were reduced to ash, and then came the moment that would define history. The Resolute, surrounded and burning, made its final stand. Captain Arden gave the order that would echo forever. All ships, advance. The Terran fleet surged forward, carving a path through the swarm's heart. Aliens who had once doubted followed them, their voices roaring in unity. Humanity led, the galaxy followed, and together they struck a blow so great it shattered the swarm. Its vast hive mind broke, its fleets scattered, its endless hunger silenced at last. Silence filled the stars. The war was over. The cost was beyond measure. Human fleets lay in ruins. Millions had been lost, but the galaxy still stood. Civilization still stood. And it was because of humanity. From that day forward, the phrase was no longer a whisper. It was carved into monuments, spoken in every language, remembered in every world. When the galaxy begged for heroes, only humans stepped forward. And humanity's legacy was clear. They were not just protectors of Earth. They were the guardians of the stars.